Right, hello there everybody. I'm afraid the Donald Featherstone basic rules videos, I've tried to do it with my 6mm figures with 36 troops to a base, and when he had 20 figures all singly based, airfix figures, 1/72 scale, etc., with figure removal, it works fine, but with my bases it's just not cutting the mustard. I'm having to use discs to represent casualties, and then the unit still looks as strong as ever when it's maybe down to 5 men, which is, as a visual spectacle, it just looks ridiculous. I have included the footage of the first 2 or 3 turns that I did, or a couple of turns, for you to see and realise how it just wasn't going to work. In fact, at the end part of the video, I was pointing in the wrong place on the bloody table anyway, my usual cock up when I'm filming. But what I have decided to do, I'm not giving up the project completely. I'm going to move on to Donald Featherstone's more advanced rules, where there were 40 men to a unit, which more equates to what I've got. Yet still figure removal. I'm still going to have to use discs, but it's a lot more involved. It's not a fight to the death like the original rules were. You fought to the last man, which is, just silly. But of course, Donald Featherstone wrote an improved set of rules, and I shall play them. But what I'll do is I shall use the scenarios for all ages, and I shall do the one that I mentioned that I would probably do, and that is this attack on a prepared position. It gives you the list of who's doing what, and there's the table. It's the same size table, I think, as what I've got, maybe a bit smaller, but I shall just half the sizes, and I'll recreate that table on here, and then fight it out with the revised Featherstone rules, and hopefully that will look a bit better. As I say, I've included the footage from the aborted sessions, so you can watch it if you wish after this, but it didn't really work, and it didn't cut the mustard, and to be honest, I was totally unhappy with the presentation of it, so that's come to an end. But it will continue with the modified rules, so if you stay with it and you watch the first couple of turns, well, I hope you enjoy it, and I'll speak to you again later. Bye for now. Alright, good morning. Here we are with the second episode of Battles of Model Soldiers by Donald Featherstone. As I said, this is a very basic first rule set, written in 1970, or there or thereabouts, and I've set up the battlefield. Let's move my piece of paper. I've set up my battlefield as per that map. I'll zoom in a bit. As per that map, as you can see, it's very simple. Each side has 2 units of infantry. There's a road running diagonally across the table. There's 2 clumps of trees, and there's a wall in the centre of the table near the road. So if I zoom out, move this a little bit on the piece of paper, you can see closest to us we've got the 2 Union regiments, and in the distance is the Confederate regiments. Now, of course, Don Featherstone was using 1/72 scale figures, all singly based. I'm using 6mm, and they're in bases regiments of 36, although I can split them into 18 because they're on 2 separate bases each one. But what I'm going to have to do is use to show casualties. I'm going to have to use some discs, different coloured discs. But that shouldn't detract from what I'm trying to demonstrate. Now, as Donald says, he says this represents wargaming at about the simplistic, basic level. And that includes rules and numbers involved. And it's a good foundation to start your wargaming, and then you would build up to more complex and more realistic rules, which of course he then went on, proceeded to write. Both generals laid out their troops on the baseline of the battlefield, which is what we've got here. Each threw a dice to decide the order. The Federal general had the highest score and decided to move first. And basically both generals moved their 2 regiments directly forward for the full 12-inch distance permitted. Now, my table's half his size, so I'm going to use centimetres, which is going to slightly throw it out. But I'll do the movements and I'll come back to you. Right, that's the first movement done. As you can see, the Federals have moved forward. The Confederate regiments have both moved forward 12 centimetres in this case. That regiment over there is approaching the road, and the one over here is just behind that clump of trees. Can you see? Yep, you can see that one there. Now, in next turn, move 2, the Confederate general threw the highest dice and decided to make the first move. He sent his right-hand regiment diagonally forward to the shelter of the clump of trees. So this unit here is going to slightly angle and come towards this clump of trees, while his left-hand regiment moved directly forward to within 9 inches of the stone wall. Right, so they're going to move, well, I'm going to have to turn them slightly because I'm obviously not put them quite in the right place, but we'll do that. The right-hand Federal regiment moves directly towards the direction of the stone wall, so the distant regiment's going to move towards that stone wall as well, while the left-hand regiment moved diagonally to their left towards the grove of trees in which the Confederates were sheltered. So these boys are going to go towards those trees as well. So I'll do that move, I'll come back to you. Okay, that move's now been completed. If I just zoom in a little bit, we'll concentrate on the action here. We've got this unit of Union troops now approaching this copse of trees with the Confederate regiment behind. Over here by the wall, the Confederates are advancing towards that wall, and so are the Union troops. Now in move 3, it says, having won the dice draw, the Federal general moved first, sending his right-hand regiment directly up to the shelter of the stone wall. Right, so let's do that. So that's definitely within 12, so I'm going to send them directly up to the shelter of that stone wall. While his left-hand regiment moved forward towards the clump of trees. Right, well, we're there anyway, so I'll put them right on the edge of the trees. The Confederate general decided not to move either of his regiments, thus giving them the right to fire. All 4 regiments were extended in a single line. Only the 2 left-hand groups of 5 men of the Confederate right flank regiment were in a position to fire on the advancing Federal left flank. So we're talking here, looking through the trees. They threw the dice, which came up 4 and a 1. And this is where the battle is really brutal. At that range, it was necessary to deduct 3 from each dice, which resulted in 1 Federal infantryman being killed. Okay, so to mark that, I'm going to put a single white disc representing 1 infantryman. As they only rolled 2 dice because they only had to basically 2 sets of guys who could fire according to the rules on that. We've done that. The range of necessity, blah blah. I've said all that. The Confederate left flank regiment fired upon the Federals who were behind the shelter of the stone wall at a range of about 5 centimetres, well 5 inches, which is roughly what I've got there. They threw 4 dice for their 4 volleys, resulting in scores of 6, 6, 3 and 5. From each of these dice it was necessary to do 1 for range plus 1 for the protection the Federals had from the stone wall. When the smoke had died down, the Federals were seen to have lost 12 men. A sad blow. Really was a sad blow. So, right, let's get us a couple of white discs out the bag. I should have prepared this early, shouldn't I? But I didn't, because I'm a daft lad. And we'll say a red disc for 10 men and 2 white discs to bring us up to 12 casualties. Now when you consider that that regiment consists of 20 men and 2 officers, they've just lost over half the strength. Now there's no saving throws, the unit doesn't have to take a morale test as we would expect. It's not broken, it doesn't move back. This is just, it's a fight to the bitter end in this. So they've done that, and so next we'll move on to turn 4, but I'll come back to that in a moment.